Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, what I wanted to do is take the Ignite Trickster that I'm recommending as a possibility you can start with in 3.9. I ran this build in 3.8, and I want to demonstrate what it's like running a high tier map with it. Just before I do this though, I do want to point out that there are two map mods that this build doesn't like. The first map mod you see here, monsters have a 90% chance to avoid elemental ailments. That is a horrible mod for this build. You can beat those maps, but by God, it is slow. So we're going to scour over that, and we're going to try and find something else. This has physical reflect. You don't care about physical reflect. You do care, however, about elemental reflect. You can't beat elemental reflect maps either. Now, I'm using a 6-link on the build normally. However, in order to make this character feel a bit weaker, to make it seem more like what you might have access to earlier in a league, I'm only using a 5-link to demonstrate in this tier 14 map. So here we go, we're going to jump in there and go and start clearing this map. The core interactions that you have here, you're casting Fireball augmented with greater multiple projectiles, and it is an Ignite focused build. So it's not the actual hit of the Fireball that matters, it's that big burning area that they leave afterwards. You'll notice that once an enemy is killed, its corpse will remain on fire, and that fire will deal damage to other nearby enemies. That's called Ignite Proliferation. And this is why the build is so effective. Oh, be very careful of those damn things, they really hurt. You don't have any way to explode corpses unless you fit a Pyre unique ring into the build, which I haven't done, but you're more than welcome to do. If you wish. Now, as a strategy to lower the resists of very tough monsters, I am using a totem which fires Wave of Conviction. Wave of Conviction will deal more fire damage than it does for anything else because my character is amping up the fire damage and isn't trying to amp up lightning damage in any way. And Wave of Conviction inflicts fire exposure on enemies. This is a 25% resistance debuff to them. I only really use that on bosses and the very tankiest of rares. Now, one thing that you can do as a late game upgrade, you'll notice at the moment that my fireballs are exploding on impact and they're being consumed when they explode. You have the option of picking up this ring, Snake Pit, which I expect will be quite a bit rarer in the 3.9 content. This drops from the Hydra only, the Guardian of the Hydra, and when it's in your right ring slot, projectiles from your spells chain one additional time and cannot fork and cannot pierce. When a projectile chains that is extremely strong, it means that it seeks out, like a homing missile, it will seek out another target that it can hit, and it will hit them. You'll notice here that these fireballs are seeking an enemy and then doing a lot of damage. I also run Val Fireball. I don't really try to scale Val Fireball any more than just the fact that it's a fireball. However, it's extremely effective, especially when not used around Porcupines, where I might actually get killed one time. It's extremely effective at clearing out entire packs. Taking on a boss with this on a 5-link rather than a 6-link, the damage is solid but not great. I augment it with... I've been trying to find additional ways to augment it beyond the basics of the fireball. I am getting some effectiveness out of using Fire Trap. There may be a better solution, and I'd encourage you to try multiple different secondary skills. Definitely, though, the core of the build is the fireballs, and it is enough. You can see I've killed Uber Elder on the 6-link with using primarily the fireballs. This build is squishy at the moment. The reason that I've got so little life is because I'm building around Skin of the Loyal. You may not have access to this item in a League Start situation. In fact, you can League Start this with a Tabula Rasa or just a rare 5-link armor. But Skin of the Loyal is a really good item. My Divination card, the Price of Loyalty, a set of them turns in for a random Skin of the Loyal with 2 implicit corruptions on it. And you'll see here that I've got +2 to the level of socketed projectile gems. You take 50% reduced extra damage from crits. And then the sockets can't be modified, that includes they can't be recolored, +1 to the level of gems. And the 100% increased global defenses means +100% energy shield, armor, and evasion. And that's based on sources of those from anywhere on your character, not just from armor pieces. Because of that, I'm running Discipline just to provide a little bit of extra defense. I don't recommend doing that unless you, default to using as your only aura, default to using Malevolence as an aura, and then default to using a Blasphemy Curse if you wish. One thing that's going to be really strong on this build next... Oh, flat. Now that's a problem. You don't have any way to deal with Porcupines and you're squishy, so they will mess you up. There are countermeasures you can take. The Pyre Unique Ring is one of them. I wasn't using that because I've been using Snake Pit, because Snake Pit's just so solid on this build. That's what Vile Fireball looks like in practice. It's a lot better when you're not around a whole bunch of Porcupines. Anyways, hopefully that gives a bit of a sense as to how the build plays. Porcupines are a weakness, but otherwise it's been very effective, and with the level of investment that I have in making the character stronger, so that's basically using a 6-link instead of a 5-link, and re-equipping Snake Pit in my right finger so that it causes forking and chaining, I've been able to take this build to 400 delve depth. In fact, I'll just go and run a delve as an example now. The delves are very much a case of, because the character doesn't heavily build into defense, there's a lot of active dodging involved in the delves. Take a little while to load up there because this character hasn't been in this mine before. It's a mine from standard, I believe. So I'll run this Growling Grove over here. So we're starting out with a bunch of extra damage on the zone, and then we're moving into an area with Nemesis and not much else. And this is with the character back at full power. So Snake Pit equipped. You'll notice that I don't have extraordinary damage against tougher bosses, or against tougher rare monsters like you find in the delves. Damage, they'll die, but they will be durable. However, the standard monster trash just melts. And there the chains and the proliferation do all the work. A lot of monsters are dying from around corners without me even really noticing that they're there. That was a bit rough. Proximity shields are not nearly as bad on this build as they normally are because most of your damage is from ignites, damage over time. You get one thing to stick, and an enemy with a proximity shield is dead. And that's a delve completed at 450, and ooh. I don't know why I'm picking loot up in standard, it's just such a habit. Can never stop myself from doing so. Okay, so that gives a bit of a sense as to what the gameplay is like on this build. It's been an absolute blast to play. So just a quick recap on how it's equipped out. I am using a Skin of the Loyal, you don't need to do that. Other item slots are life resist rares with the exception of Snake Pit, and which will be on your right ring if you can get it. Don't worry if you can't. And on the staff I'm using the Searing Touch. The Searing Touch is not absolutely unbeatable, but it is a very, very strong staff. You'll need to get a staff that has +3 to the level of all fire spell skill gems and has more of value on top of that in order to beat the Searing Touch. Or alternately, you could get one that's crafted with a Bloodstained Fossil. In terms of other item slots, the mod that you most want is the fire damage over time multiplier that you see on this set of gloves. But this character's not wearing overly amazing gear, just fairly solid. I have been using Dying Sun, which is not really going to be accessible in the next league, but that's fine because the build will work just fine without it. It's a slight power upgrade when you're already feeling strong. Support gem wise, we're starting with Vile Fireball, connected to Burning Damage support, Combustion support, Greater Multiple Projectile support, Deadly Ailment support, Ignite Proliferation support, and or you can sacrifice one of these, and in fact in many cases you would consider sacrificing Combustion in order to pick up Swift Affliction as a replacement. Swift Affliction will deal more damage in many cases, but it's going to come down to colours that you've got available. They're pretty close to each other. By all means, feel free to math it out if you're interested. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any comments or questions, definitely fire away below.